10 years ago, I put out my first course on Udemy.com. And today I want to talk about the journey. I thought it'd be more fun if we go out on a little ride and I answer some of your questions. So let's go. All right, I'm leaving my house, which I think I could honestly say is something that I wouldn't have gotten if it wasn't for Udemy. Now, I've never tested out this setup before. If you're curious, I'm using a GoPro right now with a Rode wireless setup right here, and I hope the audio is not too bad. But I would say that's one of my number one tips for new instructors. Don't let perfection get in the way of putting out content. And that goes for courses, but also all of the outside content that you have to put out as a course creator. So I'm gonna head to a lake that's near my house, and I figured that on my way there, I would just talk a little bit about the journey and what teaching on Udemy has afforded me. And number one, it's like being able to go on a bike ride like this in the middle of the day and being able to have the flexibility to work from home, to have a flexible schedule, especially during the past few years has been awesome as I've had kids and been able to spend more time with them than I think most people are fortunate to have, and I feel so lucky to be able to do that. So backing up just a little bit for those of you who don't know, maybe you're watching this video on YouTube, it's your first time hearing about Udemy or my story. In 2012, I was working full-time as a photographer and videographer for a small college, and I was just out of school, college, with $107,000 in student loan debt. I was going to bed anxious every night, like staying up, could not fall asleep, wondering how the heck I was gonna pay that off. So there I am, 21, 22 years old, 6 figures in debt, always trying to figure out how to make some extra money on the side. I was shooting weddings, doing video, I was doing side editing work, photography work, anything I can do to make a dent at that debt. I was also learning about this concept of passive income and how you could create digital content like an ebook that you could basically sell over and over and over. And that's when I found out about Udemy. And Udemy was the first platform that I had seen where anybody could teach a course. No matter who you are, you just create the videos and put it out there. And I thought, being a confident 21-year-old with experience making videos, editing videos, and a little bit of experience on camera through some like journalism stuff that I did in high school and college, I thought I could put together a class, and so I did. And in October 2012, I made $60.22 with my very first Udemy course. Now, you may be wondering what it was like on the platform at that time, and it was very different. If you put out a course, you were automatically on the home page of Udemy, and so you would get hundreds or thousands of people looking at your course as soon as you published it. So that was for sure an early adopter advantage. And I'm gonna talk about how I would start on Udemy today differently than when I started. I kept at it, continued to make Udemy courses, and I never really stopped. And it's 10 years later, I have over 150 courses, which has provided my family the resources to buy a home in this crazy world that we live in today, for my wife to not have to work while my kids are, when she had the kids and as they're growing up right now. And that's why I love it. I'm so grateful for it, and I continue to support it and want Udemy to be what I do for the foreseeable future. I'm texting Isabel, my wife, about meeting for lunch, and I'm gonna pick up the kids on my bike, which again, this is like why I am so grateful. I stop airplanes everywhere. There's an airport literally right there. Perfection is not the goal, but I'm gonna meet them for lunch, and I look at my life and this business, and I feel like the luckiest person in the world. I want to get to the questions, but all I'm saying is that Udemy has been freaking awesome for me, and it's been awesome for so many other people and instructors and students too. I mean, at the end of the day, it's all about the students who, from all around the world, at this point, I have had over 2.5 million individual students enroll in a class of mine, and I hear stories from people all over the world about how our courses, because it's not just me, it's me and partners, instructors, friends of mine who I've taught classes with, family members, my mom, my brother-in-law, and others who have created classes and helped people learn skills that have changed their lives, who have gone on and started their own businesses and made money or started a passion or a hobby. And that's just, at the end of the day, what it's all about. But anyways, let's get to the questions, because I know this was like a long freaking intro. Question one is, what's the number one thing that has allowed me to scale to those 2.5 million students, run a YouTube channel, have over 170 courses, and do everything? My basic answer to this is that it comes down to just sticking with it and having been on the platform for so long. There are not that many instructors who have been on the platform 10 years. But what I can say is, even if you haven't been on the platform 10 years, if you've been on it for 5 years, 3 years, 2 years, and if you've stuck with it, even if it was slow in the beginning or not successful in the beginning, those instructors are successful. And I feel like it's the same with anything. I think about film school. I went to film school, and the people who have stuck with it are successful. The only people that I know who aren't doing it anymore are the people who change paths, which is totally legitimate to change what you want to do, or the people who just gave up on it and didn't stick with it long enough. And it's the same with Udemy. If you're an instructor and you're just getting started out, it might seem super hard. It might feel super slow to get your first students, your first 10, 20, 30, 100 students, to make your first dollar, $100. It is not a quick get rich quick scheme at all. And that has happened for a few people where they come in with their own audience. But what I can just say is that you have to stick with it. And then, of course, there's lots of tools and techniques that I'll talk about that have helped me grow. But a big thing has been partnering with other instructors. I don't have the expertise to teach 150 courses myself. That would be crazy if you did that on your own, and they wouldn't be good courses, because I don't think anyone knows that enough to teach that many courses. So when you see, oh yeah, Phil has taught 150 classes, a lot of those classes have been translations of classes, so cut out maybe like 20% of my classes. And then now I would say 80% of the classes that I've done in the past 5 years have been partnerships with other people to expand the catalog based off of what I think my students would like, or into topic areas that I want to pursue. And so partnering with other instructors has helped a lot as well. In terms of also on top of Udemy doing YouTube, I have a channel. It has 150,000 subscribers. I think a lot of people would see that as a success, and it is a success in some sense, but my YouTube channel is not doing what it could with that many subscribers. And the only reason I think it has gotten to this point is, again, just sticking with it. Being consistent with posting videos for now 10 years has led to where it is today. What are my top 5 software, tools, or hardware equipment that I can't live without? So this is going to be a quick list. I'll explain why each of these are awesome. Number 1 is ScreenFlow. ScreenFlow is the screen recording app that I use. If you're a course creator, you need some kind of screen recording and editing software. There's lots of ways to try to hobble it together and record your screen for free with a tool, or record it with one tool and then bring it into another app to edit with. And I'm a professional video editor. I use Adobe Premiere Pro to edit all of my other videos. But a lot of people and course creators are going to start with screen recorded based courses. And to be able to record your screen, have it automatically imported into the app, and be able to edit it, put titles, music, all of that into it in one place makes it so much more efficient. So I use ScreenFlow. It's for Mac users. If you're on a PC, Camtasia is the other best alternative, and that's great for Mac as well. Canva.com is my other best friend. I create 90% of my graphics for social media, for YouTube thumbnails, for pretty much anything using Canva.com. And again, coming from someone who teaches Photoshop courses and is a graphic designer, I still prefer using Canva for that kind of stuff. It's just so simple. I can do it on the go, on my laptop. I can do it on my phone if I need to. I could just access my graphics anywhere. And I have a pro account. You don't need a pro account to get started, but Canva is amazing. I could not live without Google Drive. It's how I host all of my course content. It's how I collaborate with partners with Google Docs. I keep everything organized into folders for each course so that whenever I have to access a new a video lesson, if I have to send it to someone, if I am working with a translator, everything is online ready to go, and keeping it organized is super good. I have templates for my scripts for like promo videos, intro videos there that I can just duplicate and copy to a new folder for a new course and edit. So Google Drive is amazing. Upwork.com is also another tool that I use for outsourcing some work and hiring part-time employees, basically. I've had someone who has assisted me with answering my questions for probably the past 5 or 6 years now. And that was one of the biggest steps to freeing up time to be able to focus on creating new courses and marketing and things like that. Hiring someone who can help answer questions on Udemy, respond to messages, and that kind of thing is one of the first things I would do if you are starting to make enough money where you can pay for that. And then also where it's if you feel like you don't have enough time to answer all your questions. I think when you're getting started out, answering your questions is probably one of the best ways to connect with students, to give your students a good experience of taking courses from you, to learn from them. So I wouldn't outsource answering questions right in the beginning, but once you feel like your time, you don't have any time to create new content or courses, that's what I would do. And Upwork allows you to hire people from around the world, connect with them. It keeps track of your time, their time, and it pays them automatically, so you don't have to worry about payroll or anything like that. It's super awesome. And I've hired people to do other things too, like graphic design, people to help create workbook for my courses, which is one of the best things I've done. I hired someone they watch through all my courses as a new learner. So it's not just coming from me as someone who thinks I know the content, but someone who's learning from the class. And they then will create a nicely designed downloadable PDF workbook that has all of the top tips and lessons from every video. And it's there, then we put it in the course as a bonus that students get in lesson 2, basically. And that is such a valuable asset that students get as soon as they enroll in the class. So that's another tip, I guess, is to put together nice downloadables for your class. Students love them, and if you can outsource it, even better. Another thing that I've used for the past year or two and I couldn't live without is some sort of stock video and music and photo platform. So I use Storyblocks. I've used Epidemic Sound. I also use Artlist and ArtGrid. There's lots of them out there. I think Storyblocks is probably the best one right now to get started with because it has, and I'm not sponsored, it has everything: music, photos, video, and it just can really quickly up the level of quality for your promo videos, for your marketing content, adding music to things. You can, if you do edit your own videos with things like Premiere Pro, which I've actually outsourced a lot of video editing too using Upwork, by the way, but you can use templates for editing or for graphics, to add motion graphics to your videos to make them look super professional. So story blocks is another thing I couldn't live without right now. And then for social media content and marketing, I use meetedgar.com. It is the tool that I found to be the best all-in-one tool for me. There's lots of tools out there where you can schedule out content to multiple platforms, but what I like about MeetEdgar is it combines something that I use another site, recurpost.com, previously for, and that is to automatically recycle content to my social media audience when I put it in a bucket. So it's not just like scheduling one-time content, but I can put together a bucket of my top 20 photography related tips and tricks, blog articles, YouTube videos, whatever content I want. And MeetEdgar will recycle that content and post it to whatever platforms I want every Tuesday morning, for example. I set my own schedule. And so as a content creator, it recycles my content for me, which helps that content live longer. It serves the audience more frequently, so they're getting helpful tips and tutorials and things like that. And I don't have to do it ever. It's just in the background once I set it up. And then also just for publishing new content, to be able to put it in one place and have it broadcast to everything with the click of a button rather than me uploading it separately is great. I've outsourced some social media stuff, but to be honest, I don't think social media is, in terms of marketing, is where you're going to have your most success on Udemy and getting people to your Udemy courses. It's great to do because you have to remember not everyone's going to get your emails, not everyone's going to get your promotional announcements on Udemy. So sending out announcements on social media when you post a new course or you're having a sale is important, just to make sure as many people see it as possible. But I wouldn't focus too much time and energy on growing a social media following for Udemy. Yes, it's important to have, but it's not necessary, which I think is gonna give everyone a sigh of relief for because social media is kind of annoying to have to deal with unless you're passionate about it and love it. Um, but MeetEdgar or some kind of tool like that is super helpful. Another piece of hardware, or two things that I have really helped me since the beginning, are getting some sort of audio interface that allows you to plug in a better microphone to your computer. Then also connect your DSLR or mirrorless camera, if you have one, to your to your computer as well, for recording videos straight into your computer, for doing live streams, that kind of thing. So I use the Zoom H6N for my audio interface. There's lots of other options out there that are great. And then I also use a Magewell capture card to connect my Fuji cameras, which I'm using right now to film this. Autofocus issues in that last video, but I use that so that I can get great quality video for live streams and recording even into ScreenFlow and things like that when I'm recording courses and tutorials. All right, back on the saddle. One question I got was, what is my opinion on YouTube? I think it's a great platform for course creators to be on because it's a natural progression for someone to watch a YouTube video, to sort of start to follow a content creator, and then to purchase a course. That being said, not a lot of people who watch YouTube videos are going to want to buy a course. They're on YouTube because they want free video content. What I do think YouTube is great for Udemy instructors is to put out additional content that might not make perfect sense for a class, but it will help your students out, or maybe it's something that applies to multiple classes of yours. And so you put out this YouTube video and then you share it with your students as an educational announcement. And putting out that kind of additional content outside of your course videos is one way to increase the engagement with your students. That being said, if you want to be successful as a YouTuber, you have to focus on YouTube. And that's what I found. I always wondered why there aren't as many YouTubers who do Udemy courses. And I think it's because if you want to be a YouTuber, You just need to focus on that content, and you can't do both. I've tried it, and unless you have more hours in the day than me, which maybe some people do, if you don't have kids and you're by yourself and you have complete control of your time, it's just so hard to be focused on building a YouTube brand as well as a Udemy brand. And at the end of the day, if you ask me which one will lead to more success financially, I think every Udemy instructor would say Udemy, because for every minute that you spend putting together a Udemy course compared to a YouTube video, you're gonna get so much more revenue back. That being said, I still think all instructors, if you pick one outside platform to create content for, YouTube makes total sense. I really hope this audio sounds okay, because if not, this video is going to suck. Oh, this is a good one. Is Udemy oversaturated for instructors? I think on one hand you can say it's tougher for new instructors than it ever has been, but at the same time, people have been asking me if it's too late to be a Udemy instructor since 2015. Like literally, like for 7 years, people have been asking that. And since that time, new instructors have started on the platform and have been very successful on the platform and are making a ton of money on the platform and are teaching a lot of students on the platform. So is it saturated? Yes. Is it going to be harder to start out than when I started? Yeah, of course. But can you do it? Yes. The thing you have to remember is that students like taking multiple courses on a topic. And so I don't see my other Udemy instructors as competitors necessarily, because I know that if someone took another instructor's photography course and they're enjoying learning photography on the platform, then they might be interested in taking a photography course of mine as well if they're enjoying the platform. So even with my own courses, I have a lot of classes that sort of are related and one might say compete with each other, but I know that people like taking multiple classes on the same topic. Even similar to YouTube, people watch the same content on YouTube over and over and over again. So now the one thing you do have to remember now is that you have to bring your A game. The quality of content does have to be better than it did 5-10 years ago, where you can just get started screen recording without a microphone, just with your internal computer mic, and have success. That's no longer true. Luckily now it's easier than ever to create high quality content. Cameras are cheaper and higher quality than ever before. There's Udemy courses and YouTube videos to learn all of this stuff yourself. And so I really believe, and with like the stock video sites and music sites, it's easier to license high quality video and music. So it really is easier to create high quality content now. Another important thing is just to think about what makes you different. Is there a way that you teach that's different? Are you funny and do you bring some comedy to your courses? Do you put like a ton of effort into your content and make it like short, snappy, easy to watch, consume videos? Or do you have something like in your background that makes you unique to teach that topic? You have to figure out how you can bring something unique, your unique advantage to your courses. But no, it's not oversaturated, and I'm sure that people are going to be asking me that for another 5-10 years, hopefully longer, as long as Udemy survives and continues to grow. And so you might as well get started now, because the longer you wait and the longer you wait to commit to teaching on Udemy, the more opportunity you lose with every passing moment. What problems have I faced as a Udemy instructor and how have I overcome them? I think I need to sit down for this one. I think the biggest problem has been trying to figure out work-life balance, especially as my life has changed so much. Starting out as someone who was living by myself, I was dating my wife at the time, Isabel, but I had complete control over how I spent my evenings, my weekends, my time outside of work. And so what I did was I spent it on Udemy. I literally spent like most nights and weekends putting together content. And I think that's what maybe some people forget or don't see when they look at successful Udemy instructors, or really people who are successful at anything, and how it seems so easy now. They don't see how hard it was in the beginning and how much time and effort we put in. And so nowadays, I probably spend 15 to 20 hours a week on Udemy and course creation stuff. The rest of the time, I probably, if I'm working, it's more on creative endeavors or outside projects. But in the beginning, I was probably spending about 40 hours a week on Udemy stuff on top of a 40-hour-a-week job. And then I started working full-time for my online course business in 2015, so 3 or 4 years after I started. And then I was able to see a huge gain in my business because I had so much extra time and mind space to focus on Udemy. But then having kids a few years later led to sort of a difficult situation where it's like I work from home, I have all this freedom and flexibility, and it's almost too much freedom where I could just stop working on Udemy stuff and focus on just being a parent full time. But then there's a part of me that really didn't like doing that full time and needed to have a creative outlet and be working on stuff. Then how do you create a schedule that works for your family when you're working at home? So it's a very privileged problem to have, but I would say that that has been one of the biggest things. And I think the biggest way that I've overcome that is by setting clear boundaries of when I'm at work in my garage office, I'm working. When I come back inside, I try to leave it all at work. And it was hard in the beginning. I found that I was constantly trying to like work on my phone, thinking about what I should be doing, working at night. And I've gotten a lot better at that. And so having that separation and leaving weekends for weekends has been really great. I think the other thing is getting sidetracked with like what they call shiny object syndrome, where uh, whether it's a specific course topic that is popular and I try to partner with someone where I'm not the expert in that topic and I try to create a course on that simply because it's a popular topic, or it's trying to follow the social media trends, trying to grow on Instagram, or trying to do YouTube, or trying to do different things, or doing the premium courses. That stuff has always led me away from focusing on what works best, which is focus on Udemy, create great courses, serve my students, continue to create content for them and answer their questions and support them. And so following these side tracks of different marketing techniques and building my own off business, while I think in the beginning a lot of instructors would say that would be the smart decision to have an outside business that is successful and you can fall back on in case Udemy fails. I think Udemy has been around long enough and is stable enough, and we can talk about that more, but it is stable enough and is big enough that you could focus your energy fully on Udemy. And while I am confident that Udemy is going to be around for hopefully decades longer, what's the worst thing that could happen if you did focus all of your energy on Udemy for right now, and you spent all your time growing your business on Udemy? What if Udemy disappears? What if it gets bought out and you have to start over? You still have all of your content that you can put on another platform and do your own way. And of course, it's smart for us to grow the outside business as well. Grow an email list, grow a following on social media, on YouTube as well. But I would say to be successful on Udemy, you have to focus on that. And I think that's been a hurdle that I have sort of overcome and have finally just given in. And this, I mean, I say finally, but this has been for several years now where Udemy is where it's at for me. And not everyone's going to agree with that. And people are going to say, well, you could be making more money if you were doing your own thing. But I'm happy with the freedom and flexibility that I have with Udemy. And to be completely honest, the low level of responsibility you have to maintain a platform, to manage the marketing. Udemy does so much of that for instructors. And so I'm all in on Udemy. Lastly, I think similar to that, shiny object syndrome is just saying yes to everybody. Once I started getting some traction on Udemy and on YouTube, if anyone wanted to send me a photography tool or something to review on YouTube, I would say yes to it. If anyone wanted to partner on a course, I would say yes to it. And that led to some poor quality reviews that I'm not that proud of, to some poor quality courses that I'm not that proud of. So being able to say no has been a major blessing to the growth of my business. All right, I hope you're enjoying this video. Time is going on, and I am going over to meet my wife and kids for lunch. Well, but I'm gonna answer a few more questions. So hopefully you're enjoying this video. All right, this is a non-course related question, but the question is, can anyone become a photographer or should I give up? Which I feel sad that that's like the way that you approach the question, because I truly believe anyone can be a successful photographer or a successful, you name it. And I think the question is like, what does success look like to you? What does being a photographer, a course creator, an artist, whatever it is, what does that look like and mean to you? Does it mean making money as a photographer? Does it mean having a lot of followers on Instagram? Does it mean simply just taking photos that you're proud of and that other people enjoy looking at? I think at the end of the day, that's gonna look different for different people, but I really press you to sort of aim towards the latter, which is just doing work that you love and that makes you proud. At the end of the day, platforms like Instagram, which some people base their photography careers on, are gonna disappear. So I wouldn't like count on feeling like you're a professional photographer if you're popular on XYZ platform. And I also think that if you're creating artwork or photography that you're proud of, getting paid as a photographer will follow if that's what you want. Hopefully that answers your question. But of course, anyone can become a professional photographer. Anyone can take great photos. And just like being an online course creator, it just takes sticking with it. All right, here's some great questions from Colleen, one of our standout photography students who went from taking our courses to now basically being a full-time professional photographer. At least it seems like that. She's posting new photo sessions that she's doing professionally all the time on Instagram and social media. She asks, how do you select which format style of class you're teaching? So I have several types of classes. I have classes where it's strictly behind the computer, screencasts, showing a tool or an app. It's from there, I have classes where it's more of like a slideshow based course, where it's still a screencast of a slideshow that I've put together, but often with some talking head video added to it. And that could be on the simplest structure. It could be a webcam. If it's more fancy, if I feel like making it more fancy, it's a separate talking head video that I edit together with the screencast. And then on the most complicated level, I have what I call live demonstration courses, where it's strictly us being out in the field teaching a concept, or a combination of doing talking head videos and being out in the field. And it really just depends on what I think the students are going to want from that course. If I'm teaching a night photography course, we thought it would be fun to go out and camp out in Joshua Tree, California and take night photos. And I think that worked well. We just put out an advanced videography course, And instead of just sitting behind a desk talking about techniques to make videos look better, we set out to make a promotional video look really good. We basically filmed the whole behind the scenes of that process. But then I also just put out a course on advanced photography where it was more a theoretical course of me looking at different photos and photographers, and we were analyzing photos and talking about what makes these photos good or not. And I felt like that class lent itself to a slideshow based course. So it really just depends on what I think students will like. I think sometimes, if I'm honest, I'll get lazy and I'll do a class that ends up being more screencast lecture based than it should be, where a concept would be better taught and learned out in the field, demonstrating it to the camera. And I think instructors who are getting started out should spend the time to put together those kinds of classes, and or at least add lessons like that. And with all of my classes, even if it is just a screencast class, I always try to make it practical with real world demonstrations or projects and not just theoretical concepts. How do I measure the success of a piece of content? I am not one to care too much about the analytics of content. The platform that I spend the most time and energy thinking about the analytics and success is Udemy, and maybe that's why I'm more successful on Udemy than any other platform. But I think about like the ratings of the course, I think about how many students are in that course, obviously how much money I'm making from courses. But in terms of other content like social posts and YouTube videos, I don't really look at the analytics or measure success by that way. And like I keep saying, I think the only reason why I've had success on all those platforms is that I've been on them for a long time and I've been consistent. Unlike someone, if you look at like one of the best YouTubers now, Mr. Beast, who for years analyzed exactly what it took to create an engaging piece of content, looked at every second of the video and sees where people drop off, how to create an engaging 5-second intro, how to make thumbnails or to change thumbnails to make them more clickable. Those are things that I'm not really passionate about doing myself, and so I therefore don't have as much success on those platforms. But I guess to answer your question, how do I measure the success of a piece of content I put out? Maybe it's just if I am proud of it, honestly. Oh, so, can you hear that? Yeah, there's jackhammers going on literally right in front of my house. And I'm sure if you're a course creator, you can relate to this moment. So after my bike ride yesterday, I went to lunch with the family. I got home, things got busy, so I couldn't film the rest of my video. I was planning to do it today, and I was feeling lazy. Like seriously, right outside my front door. So I think I'm gonna go on another bike ride. But I'm also getting old, and I woke up and my neck, you know, you get a crick in your neck where it's like you can't look up. I feel like I'm looking down. The show must go on though. So I'm gonna get ready, go on a little bike ride, and answer more questions coming up. Whew. All right, we are off again, and boy, I was checking out the footage from the shoot yesterday, and I am so pleasantly surprised with how the audio turned out. And you know, the GoPro, it's a style, but I might have to start implementing this into some of my YouTube tutorials or something. So a question I got was, how long does it take me to put together a Udemy course? It really depends on the class. I would say in general, like if I look at a calendar, it'll take 2 to 3 months to put together a full course, sometimes longer. But in terms of actual working hours, I would say maybe 100 to 200 hours. But of course, it depends on the class. Some of my courses are, like I talked about before, like 3 to 4 hour screencast courses. Others are classes that I'm partnering with 2 instructors. We're planning to shoot on location at 10 different setups, and it's a much bigger process. At one time, I usually have 2 to 3 classes in different stages of the production, from pre-production to editing and launching. Most of my work goes into pre-production, and that makes a better class when I have a solid outline, a solid plan, I have all the assets that I need prepped for things that I'll be talking about, displayed, examples. I talked about how something that I like to do with my courses is make sure that I have like real world examples of whatever I'm teaching, but showing how in the real world things can be applied that I'm teaching. And so creating examples, projects, and things like that, all of that stuff is prepared ahead of time. Another part of that question was just how do I create engagement in my classes? Creating engagement is so important because the name of the game with succeeding on Udemy is to get reviews. And you're only going to get reviews if people are watching a significant portion of your class, and people are going to be more likely to give you a good review if they are watching more of your class. So one of my top tips for instructors is really pay attention to the first section of your class, the introduction and what's included. It shouldn't be 5 minutes of you talking about your experience and why you're a great instructor for this topic. Students want to get straight to the learning, and that's something that I honestly don't do well in my YouTube videos. I often waffle and I just keep talking, long intros, which doesn't lend itself to good content for people who want to get straight to the topic. But for Udemy courses, 1 to 2 minute intro to what they can expect, how to take the course, where to find the downloadable resources if you have any, and you want to include downloadable resources, you want to include project files if you have that, PDF guides, quick tip sheets, anything you can to make the student who just paid for your course feel like they're getting value in the first 15 minutes of taking your course. The other thing that I've done is I've created an outside community for my students. I hosted on a Facebook group, which there's totally pros and cons to Facebook groups. The biggest pro is that it seems like most of my students have Facebook accounts and are happy to join a Facebook group. The con being that it's Facebook. You have to deal with Facebook, you don't have complete control of it, but you also have to make sure that you are playing within the rules of Udemy. So you're not allowed to do certain things. You can't ask people to sign up for a group if you require an email address, and these things change over time too, so you got to pay attention to the rules. But having that community has been an awesome source of having students engage with each other. It gives them more opportunities to ask questions, get feedback from other students, which is super helpful. I do things like photo contests in that group, live streams, all kinds of additional content that creates engagement. And that just leads back to the students having a good course experience and leaving better reviews, which lead to more students finding my courses because they rank well, and the cycle continues. So imagine you're a student, you pay on Udemy like $15 for a class, you enroll, you get a nicely organized class with hours of easy, fun to watch video content, you get a downloadable ebook with all the top tips that they're looking for. Maybe I just made it into someone's TikTok video. And then on top of that, they get invited to a private community of students of other beginners just like them, and that's a steal of a class. Man, there's construction, gardening happening everywhere. Where am I gonna find a quiet corner? All right, next question. Are my courses on Udemy for Business or Udemy Business, and do they do well compared to the general marketplace? So if you're watching this and you don't know what that means, Udemy Business is their corporate offering where they have a subscription. Businesses can pay to allow their employees to access a couple thousand Udemy courses to improve their knowledge and skills. This obviously lends itself to courses that are technical, that are career oriented, and a lot of my classes are more soft skills, creative skills. That being said, I do have a lot of courses in Udemy Business. Most of my courses I believe are in Udemy Business. And while I know some other instructors, they make like 3 or 4 times as much money in Udemy Business compared to the marketplace, I'm still at maybe like 10 to 20% on a good month in Udemy Business. So most of my revenue is coming from the marketplace. That being said, we've seen a trend over the past year or 3 that Udemy Business is where Udemy's focus has been on. And obviously the marketplace can only grow so much while they've expanded to other countries and other languages, which has been great. And there's still a lot of room for growth, I think. And right now when I'm filming this, the world economy is just in the gutter. I'm not surprised there's been a slowdown there. But the focus has been on the growth of Udemy Business, which has just multiplied like crazy. And so it's a good idea to think about how your topics can lend themselves to a business. Why would someone want their employee to take your course? Udemy Business courses are generally shorter. The shorter classes do better, they're more specific. So how can you teach courses that are like that? Or the other thing that I've done is I've partnered. Construction everywhere. I want to run away from the loud noises. But I've started partnering with people who teach more technical business skills that I know do well on Udemy Business. And you can start doing that as well too. And it doesn't mean you have to try to partner with the biggest people out there. Udemy Business is also kind of saturated now, but there's still room. And I've seen it where I launched a course recently that was a more technical skill, and that course alone has increased my Udemy Business minutes by like 25% to 50% in the past month. Udemy Business is definitely here to stay, and if you have skills that are good for Udemy Business, yeah, capitalize on that right now. King of the world. These streets need to be repaved. The worst thing about this setup right now is that there's like a rattle that you probably hear. Another question, what's my scripting process? What are scripts? I don't script. Can you tell? I've scripted a few classes. What I do is I write scripts for my promo videos and most of my first welcome videos. Scripting is great if you're having a tough time on camera and you feel like you can't get your thoughts out concisely. With some of my co-instructors, I have made them script out their lines, and then we use a teleprompter while we're filming. We have an iPad set up to that. We use an app called Prompt Smart, which tracks the speaker's voice, and it automatically runs the script up the teleprompter. And that's been super helpful to make creating classes better, more efficient. Because previous to because prior to this, there were times filming with these instructors where it would just take so long and there would be so much editing after the fact. So scripting's great. I don't do it. I have a very solid outline whenever I create a course, not just like what this lesson is, but here are the 3 to 5 points that I want to get across in this video. The biggest thing with scripting though is to not come across robotically. And so you have to practice talking with a script. Also making sure you set up your camera and teleprompter, if you have one, in a good area so that it doesn't look like you're reading off of a screen, and you want to be as natural as possible, and that takes time. The next question is with partnering. I got a question about, do I recommend partnering? And especially like based on like the revenue side of things, if you're splitting revenue, you're giving up a lot of potential income if you're giving that up. And the way that I do partnerships is it's always a 50-50 split, depending on what your role is in the partnership. Sometimes I've done some partnerships where we've given like a minor teacher's role who is just in a couple videos, a smaller percentage or that kind of thing. But generally, if it's just me and one other partner, it's 50-50. We both have a lot at stake. We want to make sure this course is the best that it can be. Partnering is great. And it's really, like I said earlier, might be the only way you can continue to expand your course catalog, create more courses, increase your overall revenue. At some point, you just can't teach more courses. Now, I think this brings me to an important point that I just thought of. I'm gonna park and talk about it at the park. The setup's awesome though. The quality isn't like the greatest in terms of like best microphone, but seriously, so easy. It records directly in there. Kind of awkward little bump, but perfection is not the key. So the important point that I wanted to make was that making a lot of courses is one of the best ways to increase your revenue. That might sound obvious, but it's hard to have one course on Udemy just do really well, especially if you're starting out and you're trying to grow your Udemy business by yourself. Now, if you have an outside audience, if you're a big YouTuber, if you have an email list, if you're an author, a coach, or whatever, and you bring your audience to your course on Udemy, you can be successful and have that like one course do really well. But for a lot of us just getting started out, you're probably just trying to build your audience, and using Udemy as its own ecosystem where you have multiple courses that are all sort of streams of income and of students bringing into your world, where you can cross promote your other courses too. That's so important. And that's why I think partnering with other instructors is great, because the amount of work it takes to put together a class is decreased, and you can split that load. You can put out more courses more often. All that being said, the important thing that I want to talk about is that for me and for most other instructors, there's sort of like an 80-20 rule to our courses. Most of my revenue comes from a small subset of my classes, and they are the big flagship style courses: my photography masterclass, my Adobe Premiere Pro course, Photoshop, Illustrator classes, my big courses. I guess this is kind of a tangent on like why you should partner or not, but my advice is that you want to be creating big flagship courses for the marketplace. You want to be creating small focus courses for Udemy for business. Whatever type of course you create, there's benefit to it. And even the small classes help drive some revenue, but also some students find my smaller courses that end up enrolling in my big courses. And vice versa, a lot of students find my big courses, but then I sell them my smaller courses that are more specific. Like my photography masterclass is a great entry point for photographers, but then people want to take my night photography, my photo editing course, my long exposure class, whatever it may be. That being said, partnerships are great. Just make sure everything is clear, you agree upon it ahead of time. I've had some partnerships that just haven't worked out, and I think it was just because of the expectations that were set up or were not clear in the beginning, or there have been partnerships that I just shouldn't have done because the quality of the other instructor just wasn't as good as what my students wanted. And that's a big issue, is if your students are used to you as an instructor, but then you partner with someone, even if it's a topic that you want your students to know, if they don't teach it as well as you, then that's just not going to be a good partnership. It's just not going to be a good course that does well. And so you want to try to vet and make sure your partner knows how to teach, knows how to make high quality content. So for me, that has been mostly either partnering with people who have experience with Udemy courses or YouTube videos at least, or when I partner with friends and family, it's like a hand-holding process where I'm there with them. I'll be editing the course so I can keep that quality high. I'll be filming it with them, talking them through like how to say something on camera. Like I'll be directing them basically behind the camera, giving them advice about how to say things, repeat things this way or whatever. So it's a lot of work, but that at the end of the day has been one of the most fun things, is to work with other people. After all, usually I'm just by myself, riding my bike around, filming stuff, or in my office, filming by myself, all lonely. I'm sure you can relate to that. And so partnering has been super fun, and seeing not only the students learn from partners, but also see my friends and family start to make some income from Udemy has been awesome. All right, 2 more questions. One is, when do you suggest jumping to being a full-time Udemy instructor? So it really depends on your risk tolerance. What I did was I waited until my Udemy revenue matched my full-time salary at my job, and it actually started to exceed it. So, which is just crazy to think I was making a full-time income for my job, and then I was making more than that on Udemy. And it took, actually, for me, moving from one city to another with my wife after we got married, and I didn't want to look for another full-time job, and I said, okay, let's try out Udemy full-time. Even though this was 2015, it was 3 years in, so just after 3 years, my wife and I sat down and said, okay, well, let's do this for a few months. We gave us, I think, like a 3 to 6 month trial period, and if it maintains or grows, then continue with Udemy. And looking back, I'm like, well, it's kind of silly to think that it wasn't going to work out. By jumping full time, I had so many more hours, so much more freedom in my brain to work on Udemy courses. This is when I started my Facebook group for my students and doing a lot outside of the courses to help my students. It just took off from there, and it continued to grow. And it would take a dramatic change in revenue on Udemy and outside sources for me to ever have to look for a full-time job elsewhere, which is awesome. I feel very confident now in Udemy. And I think a lot of instructors now, there's been sort of a plateau on the marketplace, or even a slight dip or decrease over the past year or so on the marketplace. And so you might be taking that into consideration too. Is Udemy really something that is going to be around for forever or for a long time? But I can confidently say that I think that it is. I mean, I might eat my words, but I have faith in the Udemy team. It's a major, major business now. There's hundreds or over 1,000 employees. They've got offices all around the world. And so they're in it to win it. And there is a whole global economic downturn right now that is affecting people's disposable incomes, and whether they choose to buy an online course or not. Udemy sucks. But I do believe that online courses is and just the education space is a pretty safe place to be in. If the economy is great, people have extra income to learn new skills, to try something different, to be a little bit more risky with their career choices. If the economy is bad, then people are going to be looking to learn skills, to upskill, to change jobs, get a raise. I've spoken to Greg, the CEO of Udemy, at Berlin's Udemy Live conference for instructors a few years ago. We chatted, and I expressed that I'm the type of person who is always a little bit weary, and that's just also shows how it took me a while to jump full-time to Udemy, where if I was starting again and if I was making 50% of my income at a job or 75 for a while, for a few months going on, and it was kind of stable at that point, I might jump ship and start doing Udemy and online content full time. While I believe Udemy is going to be here for a long, long time, and for anyone starting now or doing it now, I think it could be a lifelong career. Remember what I said earlier. If it disappeared, you still have your content. You still have your classes. You could put them on YouTube. You could put them other places. You could build your own platform. So I feel safe in that sense. But I am committed to partnering with Udemy and working with Udemy and seeing it through. And I'm hoping that I'll be making another video in 10 years. 10 years from now, maybe 10 million students? That would be crazy. All right, I have one more question, and it's just a general question of like, how would I get started on Udemy? But I'm gonna hop on the bike and answer that one. How would I get started on Udemy today if I was starting from scratch? Now, if you skipped ahead to this question, then that's great, because some of this is going to be a little bit of a combination of all the tips and things that I've talked about so far. So if I was starting today, there's two questions and there's different approaches. One is if you already have an audience. If you're a YouTuber and you have a following on YouTube or whatever, maybe you're a creator on Instagram or TikTok and you want to make some passive income online, Udemy courses is a great way to do it. And so what I would do is just pick the topic that you're most passionate about. I wouldn't even worry about the income potential. If it's a class that you think would make a lot of money, just pick something you're passionate about and put together a class that you are proud of, but don't try to be perfect. It's just not gonna be perfect. Your teaching style is not gonna be perfect. The editing's not gonna be perfect. There's gonna be birds singing in the background, whatever it is, it's just not gonna be perfect. And that shouldn't be the goal. The goal should be just to get a course out there. And if you have an audience, then of course you can drive traffic to that audience. And I might just put it out as a paid product and a paid course and launch it and see how it goes. But I think a lot of people watching this are probably people who are starting out with no audience, no background in video production or Udemy, or maybe you're on Udemy and you're starting out, but you're not having the success that you're hoping for yet. What I would do is still make the course that you're most passionate about. Now, if you're passionate about two things like bicycling and video production, I would make a course in video production. It's just a much more valuable skill that people are going to be willing to pay for. That being said, there's ways to make a Udemy and an online course business on pretty much any topic. But if you do have that debate, pick the one that is more financially viable, that people would pay for. I would put out my first course as free on Udemy. And the reason I would do that is because you can use Udemy, like I mentioned, as its own ecosystem, where you don't have to be worrying about growing an email list outside. You don't have to be growing a social media following outside, but you could basically do everything within Udemy. You could grow an audience with free courses that eventually, whether it's through the legal methods of getting those students into a community of yours, or who end up following you on social media and end up being someone you can promote a course to, or what you could do is you can actually take a Udemy free course and eventually turn it into a paid course, and there you can promote to those students. So again, this is kind of detailed for Udemy instructors. This is old news, but you can't send promotional announcements, which are basically emails to students in a free course of yours. But you can promote your courses through an email blast to students in your paid courses. And so again, you might be wondering, well, why would I have free courses if I can't promote to them? Well, it's because eventually some of those people might become super fans of yours who find you on social media, on YouTube, or wherever else you're putting content, which is important. but not necessary, but it is somewhat important. Or you can make your free course and turn it into a paid course after you grow it up, and maybe once you turn it to a paid course, you add more content to it so that it's a little bit more valuable, something that someone would pay for. And then you can promote that course to your students. And this would work if you're creating multiple courses. So your next course that you create would be another paid course that you promote to the first students. I would take some of the content from your free course and put it on YouTube. YouTube is the only platform that I would care about right now as a new instructor. I would reuse some of the content that's in your classes or create similar content and put it on YouTube. I wouldn't worry too much about like becoming a YouTuber necessarily, but I would pay attention to using keywords and making sure your videos are SEO friendly on YouTube so that if someone's searching for help in your topic, you show up. The other thing with the free course that you put out is you want it to be good. Don't just slap together just a quickly shot, unedited version of a video, but make it a good course that when someone enrolls and takes it, they're surprised by the quality. And they think, oh, wow, this could be a paid course. And so the other thing with a free course that you eventually change to a paid course, and I know not all instructors are going to suggest this, but I suggest this because it works. And it's worked for me, and it's worked for a lot of other instructors that I've coached and helped out. And until Udemy changes the rules with how you can create free courses and convert them to paid courses or not, I think this is a great strategy for people who are just getting started out. But if you put out a free course and you leave it free for long enough, you're going to start to get reviews, and when it changes to a paid course, it still keeps those reviews, which will help it rank higher in the search results as a paid course. And so sometimes I've launched a course as free, converted it to paid after several months or even after a year or two, and it automatically starts to rank pretty well and make money organically without me even promoting it because it has existing course reviews. So the free course method is one that I would try out if you're starting out, because if you just create a course that's paid and you have no one to market it to, then it's not going to work out. The way that Udemy works is that you need to drive some kind of traffic to your course once it's a paid course or once you launch a course, so that it starts to have some traffic, it starts to have some sales. Because while we don't know the exact algorithm of how a course ranks on Udemy, we know that past sales, like within the past 30 days, number of reviews and ratings, all that kind of stuff do affect ranking. So the free course method is a way to grow an audience that you can then promote to. Oh my God, there's a Google Maps camera car right here. I am gonna totally freaking follow this car. I'll post on social media if I ever find myself on Google Maps. I gotta go in turbo mode. I'll be blurred out. The other thing, and this is my final piece of advice, is that you have to be engaged with your students and your class. Whether you're starting out or you've been doing this for a while, you should be the one answering questions in the beginning. You should be connecting with your students. You should be using Udemy's educational announcements to update them on latest trends or ideas or new content that you put out related to those students. You should even be creating a community outside of your group on Facebook, on Discord, on Slack, or however you can do it, where you're connecting with your students on a deeper level, because ultimately you're going to turn these students into fans of yours, and they're going to be the ones that support you and promote your work, that buy your new courses and help you grow your Udemy business. And that's not going to happen on a whim overnight. It's going to happen with hours and hours of answering student questions, creating additional content that you share with them, ultimately just trying to connect with them the best that you can via the online platforms that we have. So when you're getting started out, truly care about your students. You shouldn't even be worried about the revenue or the money you're making. That's going to come later, and that will happen if you stick with it. If you care mostly about just creating a course that your students are going to love, just imagine you sitting behind that screen watching your course. Is it something they're enjoying watching, or are they bored and do they want to just like get through it as fast as possible? Make it fun, build a community outside for your students, and stick with it. I think that is it for now. It's been 10 amazing years. I can't believe where I'm at, and I feel like it just started. I haven't really committed to many things for 10 years. I can think of 2, my wife, who I've been dating or married to for over 10 years, and Udemy. You guys are the passions and the loves of my life, and I just can't wait to see where the next 10 years go. And I hope that anyone watching this video, if this helps you or if you have a success story, share it with me. And if you have advice, share it with me in the comments of this video or wherever you're watching this. Much love to the Udemy team. I love you and I thank you. And we'll see you next time. Bye everyone. Have a beautiful day. Cheers.